whatever you want to call it, we are going to be going over the core curriculum today. In addition to just going over the mechanics, which many of us work with, we've got Dr. Ed McNerney here, who knows more about the core curriculum than anyone else on campus, to talk not just about the mechanics of the core curriculum, but also the philosophy behind the core curriculum and the goals of the core curriculum. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Dr. Ed McNerney.
All right. Thank you, Terrence. Well, thank you all for coming. I would like to know who you are and what is your association with TCU? I'll start over here. Okay.
Hi, I'm Melissa Villegas, and I'm in the advancement department. I just have a general curiosity for the core, for my own personal children and their development.
Well, good, because it's a curious course, so I'm glad you have curiosity about it.
Hi, my name is Elba Orozco. I am a faculty at the Political Science Department.
Thank you.
I'm Savannah Coleman. I'm an administrative assistant for the Department of Strategic Communication.
Very good.
I'm Julie Curry from the Registrar's Office, and we are going to put this on our website.
All right. Very good.
I'm Michael Leshner, Assistant Director in Financial Aid, and I think I sat in on core curriculum a few years ago, so I just kind of wanted to get a refresher and to see if anything's changed, and just kind of, I didn't remember everything I learned last time, so.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I'm Sharon Starfisher. I'm with Communication Studies.
I'm Ray Pfeiffer. I'm the undergrad dean at the Neely School and accounting professor.
I'm Chinhai Yang. I'm assistant professor at Communication Studies. I'm JP and
I'm Ashley Tilley. I'm the program specialist for Sheehan College.
Very good. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm Ed McNerney, and I am in the economics department. That's when I first came to TCU a few years ago. I came into the economics department, and I was finishing what was started out as a 2-3-year terms as department chair, and turned into 4 3-year terms, and I was looking forward to the end of my responsibilities as administrator when the core curriculum came into being, and I wound up being the core director, and that was 2004. So I then was half-time in department and half-time as core director, and then in the last 5 years I've also had responsibility of our quality enhancement plan. So it's been an interesting time for me. My career took a little different path than I thought it was going to, but here I am. I am so glad you're here. We revised what was called the undergraduate, the UCR, in the early 2000s. The process started in the early 2000s, and it was a long, lengthy process in the sense that as you'll see when we talk about it, we did more than just design a grid that you see that tells you how many what courses or what requirements you have to meet. We also took the design through the Faculty Senate and then through the Faculty Assembly, and in the meantime wrote learning outcomes for the categories and competencies. So there was a lot of work involved in that, and then once the faculty completed that work, then we had to operationalize it, and that involved a lot of people in the university, and including the registrar's office, who you see those beautiful when you advise students and you get the courses go right into the grid. I mean, it's a really, really nice operation. Anyway, let's get started. All right, earning a degree from TCU. To earn an undergraduate degree from TCU, a student must earn at least blank credit hours. How many? Anybody know? 124. And that's non-negotiable. That's one of the few things that you can't bargain about. You really have to achieve 124 hours. And as you can quickly figure, most of our credits, most of our courses are 3-credit courses. And 3 does not divide well into 124. So somewhere along the way, a student has to pick up either a 1-credit course or a 4-credit course or wind up with more than 124, which a lot of them do anyway because of their programs. So, but it is a minimum of 124 hours. Those requirements turn out in 4 major categories: the general education requirements, major and associated requirements, and I might add that in addition to those, sometimes there's college requirements as well, that on what you're specifically supposed to take in the core, and sometimes even like business has a business core that has to be satisfied. Minor requirements, if a minor is required, and what turn out to be electives. This is the one that's always interesting for students, that I've satisfied all my requirements, but I'm still short 10 hours or 12 hours. What do I do? Nothing. Well, you have electives, but electives don't count anywhere. But they count toward 124 hours. That's a time when you can explore, if your program allows you to do that. And that's something that's very important for students to know. And also, we sometimes confuse them by using the word electives. We're not careful enough with the use. For example, there's electives within the major. And so you have to be careful that you say, not you have free electives or economics electives or general business minor electives. So it's not, they can easily get confused with the word because it gets used in different ways. All right, why general education? Well, we have a practical reason for general education requirements and a philosophical reason. The practical reason has to do with our regional accrediting agency, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, based in Atlanta, Georgia. Core Principle 2.7.3 reads, and I'll read it to you, in each undergraduate degree program, the institution requires the successful completion of a general education component at the collegiate level. That one is a substantial component of each undergraduate degree, ensures breadth of knowledge, and is based on a coherent rationale. For degree completion in associate programs, the component, well, I won't read that one. For baccalaureate programs, a minimum of 30 semester hours are the equivalent. Okay, so our regional accrediting agency wants us to have a general education component. That's the practical reason for having the requirement. The core principle goes on. These credit hours are to be drawn from and include at least one course from each of the following areas: humanities, fine arts, social behavioral sciences, and natural science mathematics. The courses do not narrowly focus on those skills, techniques, and procedures specific to a particular occupation or a profession. The institution, or if an institution uses a unit other than, okay. That's the general education requirement. Now, philosophical reason goes back to why we have, what is a college and university about? Now, we know that the professional component is there, that we know that it's an investment of your families or your own funds, in the hope that you'll have a career that is worthwhile, both monetarily and professionally, that you find something that you really like to pursue. It may not always be highly paid, but at least it's something more than you can do without a college degree. So that's the professional reason. But there's another reason why we have universities, and that's general education so that we have educated citizens and leaders. In a democracy that depends on educated citizens, we have to provide general knowledge. And besides that, it's a tremendous educational experience. So we don't want somebody coming in who wants to, say, be a music major and just take all music courses, all music performance courses. There are schools like that. Juilliard School of Music in New York, for instance. But to get a general undergraduate baccalaureate degree from an institution, you have to have a general education liberal arts component. The general education curriculum at TCU, oh, I can't tell you how long we spent coming up with this name. The TCU Core Curriculum. It was, we used as our model the old ballpark in Arlington. That seemed like a really descriptive name, so the TCU Core Curriculum seemed to do what we wanted. It is actually, as we'll see when we go along, it's technically not quite a traditional core curriculum. A traditional core curriculum is very, very specific in what a student has to take, even sometimes down to specific courses that they have to take, and even sometimes specific readings in those classes that all students have to take. Ours is not that specified, as we'll see, but there is a core component anyway. Overall, the TCU Core Curriculum, we hope, helps to prepare students to be responsible citizens and ethical leaders in the global community. Is that familiar? Yes, of course. That's a slight rewording of our mission statement. Four main areas that I'd like to emphasize about the core. First, that it does focus on the liberal arts. Second, that it links the curriculum requirements to TCU's heritage, mission, vision, and values. Third, it strengthens the foundation. And fourth, facilitates a focus on educational competencies, learning outcomes, and assessment. Okay, focuses on the liberal arts. Let's look at that first. That's the human experiences and endeavors portion of the curriculum. Develop students' knowledge of the human condition and its connections to the good and the beautiful and to the natural and social orders. Humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, and fine arts. Now, if you remember back a couple slides ago on the core principle 2.7.3, the humanities and social sciences were mentioned along with a few others. We also have a wonderful statement in page 1 of their handbook for faculty staff, which starts out with mission, vision, values, and then our heritage, philosophy, and goals. And I'll go down to paragraph 4. Much of the knowledge students seek is related to their specific career goals. The university, however, regards as essential the advancement and communication of general knowledge, which enables students to understand the past, to comprehend the natural and social order, to search for the good and the beautiful, and to integrate knowledge into significant wholes. Now, comprehending the natural social order and the good and the beautiful is what this part of the curriculum is all about. Not the only place, but that's the essential part of it. The second links curriculum requirements to TCU's heritage, mission, vision, and values. We have a past. There is a heritage. And one of the relationships, the school was founded by disciples of Christ ministers, although there is a separation now, but there is a religion heritage in at TCU, and that's why we have a religious traditions requirement. Let's take a look. There are actually 6 religious traditions, historical traditions, literary traditions. We encompass those 3 as the heritage portion of the heritage, mission, vision, and values. The last 3, cultural awareness, global awareness, and citizenship and social values, really do link up directly with our mission statement and our vision and values. Finally, strengthens the foundation. There are basic skills that students need, and those basic skills strengthen students' basic skills to ensure their ability to communicate clearly and think analytically. Mathematical reasoning, oral communication, written communication, 2 courses, 1 and 2, and writing emphasis courses. So mathematical skills and written and oral communication skills. Wow. Now, a little bit more specific. How many hours in all of these areas? 27 human experiences and endeavors. 18 heritage, mission, vision, and values. And 18 in essential competencies. Now, if you quickly added that up, you get 63 hours. And if you are in a professional program, you're having a heart attack, because if you have to do 63 hours to satisfy your general education requirements, you're not likely to get out in 124 hours, because nursing, business, music, education, any professional program that has a discipline-specific or college-specific accrediting agency was going to have a lot more requirements on their majors. And that makes the melding of general education requirements and professional degree requirements a difficult one. Especially if you want to get students out in 4 years or 124 hours, we have to do something to make that possible for not just the liberal arts majors, but also for the professional programs. So, how do we do it? Well, students it looks as if they're going to have to take 63 hours to satisfy general education requirements. But it's possible that we could satisfy more than one requirement with one course. And it's not just in the core that we could do this. We could allow courses that count towards a major to also count in the core. You can't do all of that. I mean, you have to be careful because, again, the accreditation requirements don't want to all of the general education requirements to be satisfied in the major. That defeats the purpose. But a little flexibility is a useful thing. So what we are able to do, I'm going to go on to the next slide, or I'll go back here. What we're able to do is allow courses to satisfy more than one requirement. And I'll come back to that and do a little bit more examples later. Let's take the human experiences and endeavors. And let me know if you have any questions. Please let me know. You don't have to wait till the end. 27 hours, 9 in humanities, 9 in social science, 6 in natural science, and 3 in fine arts. And in order to ensure that there's enough breadth, we put restrictions on how many can be satisfied in one discipline, as defined by a course prefix. 6 hours from one discipline is the maximum. So a student cannot satisfy humanities by taking 3 English classes. Unfortunately, they can't satisfy social sciences by taking 3 economics classes. That would make much sense to me, but they can't do that. So there has to be breadth within the core as well. One of the things you have to be careful about in advising is that some disciplines, history comes to mind, have, political science is another one, have courses that have been approved for humanities and social sciences. So you normally don't think of that kind of crossing. And English has a couple that have been approved for fine arts. So you can easily miss that if you're looking at just focusing on the discipline, thinking they belong in a particular category. There might be another one somewhere else, so keep your eye on that. So they could take one from history for humanities and another one for social science, but that's it then for the human experiences and endeavors. The other thing that's critical is the natural sciences requires 2 different subject areas. So the student can't satisfy that requirement by taking 2 biology or 2 geology. They have to take 2 different ones. That's something that the natural sciences wanted. Any questions on this? Okay, so you have to sort of look sideways here to accomplish what we wanted. The Heritage Mission, Vision, and Values, again, has the 6 categories. One course from each of those categories. The first 3 tend to be somewhat discipline specific. Most of religious traditions, I think all but maybe 2, are in the religion department, but they don't have to be. If a course outside of the religion department can satisfy the outcomes of the category, then they could be approved. Same for historical traditions. Most of them are in the history department, but not all of them. Music has a music history class. Economics has a couple of economic history classes because we have some very good economic historians. I can't think of any others off, but I know those 2 disciplines have some, and I know there's others as well. Dance, I think, has a dance history class. Those courses have to be approved, but they don't necessarily have to be in the history department. That's why we don't just say history. It's historical traditions. And that also means that a student doesn't have to take a history course in their first year. They can look around and see what disciplines have historical tradition classes, what level. It doesn't have to be the first semester, second semester. Literary traditions is mostly in the English department, but not all. The last 3 are all no definite discipline all across the university. Cultural awareness, global awareness, citizenship, and social values. Those 3 courses, you notice there's a little asterisk on those 3. I'll come back to that in a minute. And finally, essential competencies, and you see the same there's an asterisk on writing emphasis. 1 course in mathematical reasoning, 1 in oral communication, written communication 1 and 2, and writing emphasis courses. The latter 2 categories are all across the university. Every department has at least 1. Most of them, they have to be junior, senior level courses. And they build on the introductory, the 2 written communication, and they are specifically designed to help students learn to write in their major, in their discipline. It doesn't mean the student has to take them in the discipline. They can go outside the discipline, but that's mostly where they will get that credit satisfied. Okay, so let's go back for a moment and talk about how this satisfying more than one requirement might work. An example, Religion 10023, Understanding Religion and Communities, has been approved for humanities and for religious traditions. So a student who takes that course will satisfy both requirements. And the X goes in that box. And the same could be true for an English course that's humanities and literary traditions. So a student could satisfy both. Now understand, that doesn't mean they reduce the total number of hours they need to graduate. They still need 124 hours to graduate, but it does reduce the number of hours that are needed to satisfy the core requirements. Okay. Now, the answer to the question is that raised earlier about do you need 63 hours to satisfy their core requirements is obviously no. It could be less. What's the minimum number you could get by? You could actually, the student could actually satisfy the core requirements with a minimum of 39 hours. And how that comes about, I don't recommend, nobody necessarily recommends that the student do it this way, but it is possible. So if you take the human experiences and endeavors, 27, if each one, if you had 6 courses in that groupings, in the humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, and fine arts, that if satisfied each of the 6 categories across the HMVV, for example, religion and religion course that satisfies humanities and RT, English, humanities, and LT, a history class that's humanities and HT. And if you found 6 courses that did both, then you would satisfy the 45-hour requirement with 27 hours. Okay? So that's how you can get down that part down to 27. It really, pictorially, it really makes sense. If each one of these also is in here, then those 18 are folded into the 27, and you do the 45 and 27. That's not the only way, but it's possible. What about the bottom part, though? How do we get, there's 18 hours in the essential competencies. How can we get that down? Well, if it is entirely possible in 2 ways, if 2 of these courses are also writing emphasis, then you're only taking 12 hours to satisfy the essential competencies. The other 6 are being folded into the same courses that are being used over here. So that's how you can get it down to 39. It's not the only way. If those 6 hours of writing emphasis counted toward the major, it accomplishes the same goal. The 6 hours don't add to the total for the core, but because they're satisfying other requirements as well. So that's another way that it can be done. Again, we don't recommend that the student do this, but it's possible. And it becomes really critical in some of the professional programs that in order for the students to get out. The maximum is 63. the more liberal arts-oriented degree programs allow a student to take the maximum number in the core. So it's a flexible core between 39 and 63 hours. All right, now back to that asterisk. That asterisk on the CA, GA, CSV, and WEM means that those courses cannot be transferred from other institutions. They have to be, this is always tricky to say, because if I say they have to be taken at TCU, somebody's going to say, but wait a minute, I know that there's a study abroad that you can get cultural awareness. That's true. It has to be a TCU course, which could be taught somewhere else. It doesn't actually have to be on campus, but it can't be transferred from another institution. The transfer issue can be problematic. We certainly want to encourage students to come to TCU if they've started somewhere else, but there is the problem of how comparable are the courses to our courses, and that's always a tricky issue.
Does that also prohibit using dual credit, AP, those sorts of things? You can't replace those requirements with those either?
That's right, yeah. That's a good point. And it gets really tricky when, like, a sociology course that at TCU carries social science and cultural awareness, say, or social science and CSV, will only come in, if it's comparable to the course, it will come in with the social science, but not the other. But the students picked up on that pretty quickly. It wasn't as bad of a transition, hard a transition as we thought. Courses can be approved for more than one HMVV category. Like a course could be cultural awareness and global awareness, or historical traditions and citizenship and social values. But they can't be counted for more than one category. So that's why on the registrar's search page it'll say CA or GA, HT or CSV. And when you're advising, you have to, it's helpful to look and see if a course has been approved for more than one category, because the default as to where it goes is the first of the two designations. So if it's HT or CSV, it's going to automatically go into HT. But it could go to CSV if a student took another HT. So if you're advising a student and it looks like they don't have a CSV, they may have already taken one, which they could use for the CSV if they took another course in the same category. So that's something to keep in mind if you're... Any questions on that? No more than 2 courses with the same prefix in the HEE, I've already mentioned. The same is true for HMVV. So a student can take 2 courses in the English department one for historical traditions, one for literary traditions, but no more. Now, an obvious question is, how many can they take to satisfy HEE and HMVV? Well, it turns out it could be 4. They could do 2 for HEE and 2 for HMVV. Students are encouraged to satisfy requirements as they progress through their degree. Now, what we mean by that is, as I said earlier, you don't have to satisfy the requirements in the first 2 years. There's plenty of opportunity to take courses at the upper level. The ones that do need to get out, they should get out of the way quickly, are the the 4 12-hour essential competencies: written communication 1 and 2, mathematical reasoning, and oral communication. Because those are the skills that are needed for the others anyway. But the other categories, particularly HMVV, has a lot of upper level courses, and a lot of them in the majors. The students can satisfy the credits in their major. Like I already mentioned economics as an example for HT, but we also have a global awareness course that the student can satisfy by taking a couple of global awareness courses. Okay, so those are some salient points. Questions? Yes, sir.
So just interested in your thoughts on this. In looking at the business school core, one of the things we thought about doing was trying to encourage students to do more of their core in their sophomore year. One consequence would be more of our students would be taking their TCU core later in their degree, which is consistent with your last bullet. But then some of my colleagues were saying, well, doesn't that mean our seniors and juniors are going to be sitting in classes with only sophomores and freshmen? And I don't see how that's a problem, but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I don't see it as a problem either, but they don't necessarily have to take freshman and sophomore classes. They could take upper level, but even if they don't want to do that, I don't see that as a problem either.
Labor arts and EC courses, easy kind of.
I'm not quite sure I understand. Let's go back. So a course could be approved, say, for historical traditions and cultural awareness, but the student only can count it for one of the two, either HT or CA. And what I was then saying, which probably got a little obscure, was as far as the registrar's office has to make a decision, and the decision as to what to do with them is to automatically put it in the first. So when the student takes it, it would automatically go in here. But if they took another historical tradition, it could switch over to cultural awareness. Now, and it's possible, and I think this is true, that a student could request it to go over there too, but that would take an actual effort. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And speaking from liberal arts and
So what about liberal arts?
I mean, so for liberal arts and essential competence, one course is accounted for more than one category, is that correct?
No. You mean down here? No, it can't. It can only be approved for one. But now a course can count for one in here and one over here. That kind of crossing can go.
Where can we find a list of courses that meet more than one category?
Yeah, I'll show you how you can find those near the end. Yeah. Okay, so the last part, the fourth of our 4 areas is it facilitates a focus on educational competencies, learning outcomes, and assessment. This part was the new and most difficult part of the design of the new core. If all we had to do was come up with that grid, it would have been a lot easier. We would have been finished earlier and moved on. But the core part of the reason we feel comfortable calling it a core is that each of the categories has the learning outcomes. So even though they're not specified courses, the courses have to meet specified learning outcomes and competencies. So in that sense, it's not just, when I first came to TCU, for example, there were 4 areas to the core: social science, humanities, natural science, fine arts, 12 hours in each. Any course that was in the humanities counted. Any course that was a social science discipline counted. Same for natural science, same for, and it was just ticking it off. There was no sense of what the course was supposed to accomplish. What do we want someone who takes a natural science course to be able to do? That wasn't part of it. And there was no sense of assessing whether students were attaining what we didn't specify they were supposed to do. So it got a little better with the UCR, which was the follow-up to that real Lucy core, in the sense that you had to apply to get the courses in, but still there wasn't as really well-developed learning outcomes and assessment. So when we got to this part, we knew we had to do more on that. So each core category has an educational competency, at least one learning outcome. Most of them have more than one, but historical traditions and social sciences only have one. And student action steps, what students are supposed to do to achieve the outcomes. The idea being that we link what students are doing and what kinds of assignments that they're doing with the outcomes, with the competencies, with the institutional goals of the university, and then finally with our mission, vision, and values. So that there's a linkage instead of a random set of courses. Okay, so how do courses get into the curriculum? Well, one way, and I've talked with institutions, I've seen institutions that do it this way, is to just say, oh, that looks like it's a social science, let's put it in. That looks like it's a humanities, let's put it in. Well, if you start out with competencies and learning outcomes, then you have to, well, you could still have someone saying, oh, I think that course has, looks like that course has what we want, so we'll put that in. The other way to do it is to say, well, the person teaching the course should tell us what the students are going to do in the class and how they're going to meet, how that assignment is going to allow them to achieve the learning outcomes. And that's the route that we chose. We chose to go, the instructor is going to have to tell us how the course, what the students are going to do in the course, and how that's going to achieve the outcomes. Not always popular, but hey, it's everybody's got to learn. And it has been a professional development for faculty. Some take to it more than others, but it's something that they have to do. The next question then, if you're going to do it that way, is who is going to vet the courses? Who is going to actually determine whether the submission is adequate? And we decentralized it. We have two actually across the campus courses, the HMVV committee that vets courses for the HMVV category. Not surprising. So those 6 categories, a faculty who wants to try to get a course in any one of those 6 categories has to come to the HMVV committee with their proposal. They come to me and then I take them to the committee. The Writing Emphasis Committee works the same way. It's across faculty from different disciplines, although it's specified we do want writing people on there. So we have the director of the writing, written composition, the director of the writing center that are standing members of that committee. But the same thing, the proposals come to me, I take them to that committee. The college committees, the College of Science and Engineering, Add-Ran College, College of Fine Arts, and College of Science and Engineering, I already said that, vet the HEE category. So humanities and social science go to Add-Ran, natural sciences goes to College of Science and Engineering, and fine arts goes to Fine Arts. Now again, they don't have to be in the college, but they're vetted by the college. The proposals can come from any department. And finally, there's the matter of the, the foundations. The math department vets mathematical reasoning courses, communication studies, the oral communication, and English, the written communication. So those are the departmental committees. And then all of those come to me, and then I take them to the, notify the registrar's office. Okay, so the question came up, how can you find out what courses count? And let's see if I can actually do this. I don't think so. I think I'm going to have to get out of the PowerPoint and go to the registrar's webpage and show you what I want to show you. There's a list of courses approved, and there are the core courses that are offered each semester. So we'll come back after the PowerPoint and take a look at the registrar's page. Assessment is done kind of the same way, following the vetting. The Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Core Curriculum heads up the assessment process. HMV, faculty learning communities, bring their report to the HMBV committee. There's college assessment committees. The Writing Emphasis Committee takes care of the writing emphasis. And then departmental assessment committees. Okay. Okay, so under TCU Core, you'll find a listing of all of the courses that have been approved, and it'll tell you the categories. So let's take a look at that. Think down, yeah, core approved courses. So they're by category. Thank you, Terrence. And then alphabetically within the category. And also the date that they were approved. So you can look there and for courses to see what categories they've been approved for. They no longer exist. They've been deleted. Okay, so that's where you can find a list. Now, on a more practical basis, if you're trying to help a student get a schedule, you need to know what's being offered. So, in a particular semester. So how can we find that out? If we go back to the registrar's page. On class search, you can search by category. So if you wanted to see what humanities and religious traditions, for example, you could click on both of those and it'll pull up all of the courses in the spring semester that have been approved for both. So it's really nice. The registrar's office has really done a great job. Okay, any questions on that? All right, thank you.